I never thought a snow removal tool would land me in the middle of a police investigation. But when Patricia Henderson tried stealing my roof rake right off my front porch in broad daylight, I knew my quiet life in Boulder, Colorado was about to get a whole lot more complicated. It was mid-January, and the snowstorm that had just blown through left us with about 18 inches of fresh powder. Beautiful to look at, but a nightmare for my roof. I had just finished clearing the first section when I heard the unmistakable sound of boots crunching through snow on my front walkway. I looked down from my ladder to see Patricia, the HOA president of our Meadowbrook community, marching up to my porch with that tight-lipped expression she always wore when she was about to deliver bad news. "Nathan Cooper," she called up to me, hands on her hips. "We need to discuss your landscaping violations from last fall." I climbed down carefully, setting my roof rake against the porch railing. "Patricia, it's January. Whatever you think I did wrong with my landscaping is currently under 1.5 feet of snow." She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through photos. "I documented everything in November. Your ornamental grasses exceeded the approved height by 3 inches. That's a clear violation of Section 12, subsection 4 of our community guidelines." I wiped the snow off my gloves. "The grasses are supposed to grow tall. That's literally their purpose. They're ornamental. The guidelines specify a maximum height of 36 inches for all decorative plantings visible from the street." She thrust her phone toward my face, showing a photo of my perfectly healthy prairie dropseed that I had spent 2 years cultivating. "I'm not cutting them. They provide winter interest and habitat for birds." Her face flushed. "The board will be issuing a fine. $50 for every week you remain in violation, starting retroactively from November 1st. You can't fine me retroactively for something you never warned me about. The guidelines are available on the website. Ignorance is not an excuse." She turned on her heel and stomped back toward the street, but not before grabbing my roof rake from where I had left it leaning against the railing. She hoisted it over her shoulder and kept walking. I stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. "Hey, that's my roof rake." She didn't turn around. "Community property. All snow removal equipment should be shared among residents during weather emergencies. It's in the emergency preparedness section." "That's my personal property. I bought it with my own money. Take it up with the board." She was already at the sidewalk, my 24-foot aluminum roof rake balanced on her shoulder like she had just won some kind of prize. I pulled out my phone and started recording as she walked away. "Patricia, I'm asking you one more time to return my property." "Recording me without consent is illegal," she called back without turning. "Actually, Colorado is a one-party consent state, and I'm the one party who consents. Now give me back my roof rake." She climbed into her white SUV, somehow managing to fit the long rake inside by angling it from the rear cargo area through to the front passenger seat. Then she drove off, leaving me standing in my snowy driveway, equal parts furious and bewildered. I immediately called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher sounded almost amused when I explained the situation. "So the HOA president took your snow rake, roof rake. It's for clearing snow off your roof so it doesn't cause ice dams or collapse. And you have proof she took it." "I have video of her walking away with it and refusing to return it when I asked." "Okay, Mr. Cooper, we'll send an officer over to take a report." Officer Martinez showed up about 40 minutes later. He was a stocky guy in his 30s with a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately appreciated. I showed him the video on my phone while we stood in my driveway. "Yeah, that's pretty clear-cut," he said, taking notes. "That's theft. Doesn't matter what her reasoning is. She took your property without permission and refused to return it. She claimed it was community property. Is it? No, I bought it at Home Depot last winter with my credit card. I have the receipt, he nodded. I'll go have a conversation with Miss Henderson. What's her address? I gave him the address of her house, which was only 4 streets over. He told me to wait at home and that he would be in touch. While I waited, I went inside and made myself coffee, trying to calm down. My wife Gloria had taken our daughter to her piano lesson in Denver, so I had the house to myself. I pulled up the HOA guidelines on my laptop and searched for anything about shared equipment. There was a section about snow removal responsibilities, but it only stated that homeowners were responsible for clearing their own driveways and sidewalks within 24 hours of snowfall. Nothing about sharing tools. Nothing about community property. The whole thing was absurd. Patricia had been president of the Meadowbrook HOA for 3 years, and in that time, she had made life miserable for at least a dozen families. She had fined the Ramirez family for having a basketball hoop that was too visible from the street. She had threatened legal action against the elderly couple at the end of my block for painting their front door navy blue instead of the approved midnight blue. She had even tried to ban holiday decorations after Thanksgiving because they were visually cluttering the community aesthetic. My phone rang. Officer Martinez. Mr. Cooper, I spoke with Miss Henderson. She refuses to return the roof rake. She insists it's community property and that you're being selfish during a snow emergency. There's no snow emergency and it's not community property. I explained that to her. I informed her that she had committed theft and that if she didn't return your property voluntarily, I would have to pursue criminal charges. And she told me I was harassing her and that she would be filing a complaint with my supervisor. Then she closed the door in my face. I rubbed my temples. So what happens now? Now I write up a report recommending charges. The case will go to the district attorney's office. Given that there's clear video evidence and the value of the item, they'll probably file charges for petty theft. She'll get a court summons. How long does that take? Few weeks, usually. In the meantime, you can file a civil suit in small claims court if you want your property back faster, but honestly, the criminal case will probably move faster. This is insane. Yeah, HOA disputes can get pretty crazy. I've seen worse, believe it or not. Last year, we had an HOA president key someone's car over a mailbox disagreement. After Martinez hung up, I spent the next hour stewing in frustration. I needed that roof rake. The snow was already starting to compact on my roof, and we had another storm coming in 3 days according to the forecast. Without the rake, I would have to hire someone to clear my roof, which would cost at least $200. I decided to send an email to the entire HOA board, not just Patricia. I carefully laid out what had happened, attached the video, and requested that the board intervene to have my property returned immediately. I kept my tone professional, even though I wanted to unleash a string of profanity that would make a sailor blush. The response came within an hour, but not from any other board member. Patricia replied to all, copying the entire neighborhood email list. Dear residents, it has come to my attention that Nathan Cooper is prioritizing his personal convenience over community welfare during a weather emergency. All able-bodied residents should be helping elderly and disabled neighbors clear snow, not hoarding equipment. I have temporarily requisitioned Mr. Cooper's roof rake to assist Mrs. Chen on Elderberry Lane, who is 82 years old and cannot safely clear her own roof. Mr. Cooper's selfish attitude and his decision to involve law enforcement in a community matter shows a complete lack of neighborhood values. The board will be discussing his continued residency in Meadowbrook at our next meeting. I stared at my laptop screen in disbelief. Continued residency. Was she threatening to kick me out of my own house? I hit reply all before I could think better of it. Patricia, Mrs. Chen is welcome to borrow my roof rake anytime. All she has to do is ask. You, however, did not ask. You took my property without permission, which is called theft. The police agree, which is why you're now facing criminal charges. As for my continued residency, I own my home. You have no authority to force me to leave. I suggest you consult with an attorney before you dig yourself deeper into this hole. My phone started ringing immediately. It was my neighbor Tom, who lived 2 houses down. Dude, this is hilarious. I've been waiting for someone to stand up to Patricia for years. It's not hilarious, Tom. She stole my roof rake. I know, and it's about time someone called the cops on her. Do you know she fined me $300 last summer for having dandelions in my lawn? That's excessive. Right. And when I refused to pay, she put a lien on my house. I had to hire a lawyer to fight it. Cost me more than the fine would have. She put a lien on your house over dandelions. Yep. Judge threw it out, but the damage was done. I'm still paying off the legal fees. More neighbors started calling and texting. Apparently, Patricia had created enemies across the entire community. The Johnsons had been fined for parking their car in their own driveway, because it was commercial vehicle, even though it was just a pickup truck with a small company logo on the door. The Stablers had been threatened with a lawsuit because their teenage son's band practiced in their garage on Saturday afternoons. The list went on. Gloria came home with our daughter Emma around 5. I explained the situation while Emma practiced her piano pieces in the living room. She actually took your roof rake, Gloria asked, her green eyes wide with disbelief. Walked right off with it. And you called the police. Of course I called the police. She stole my property. Gloria sat down at the kitchen table processing. Nathan, you know this is going to turn into a whole thing. It already is a whole thing. Did you see her email? I saw it. Half the neighborhood is talking about it. She pulled out her phone and showed me the Meadowbrook Community Facebook group. The comment section under Patricia's email had exploded. Most people were supporting me, but a few of Patricia's allies were defending her actions, claiming I was being selfish and litigious. We can't just let her get away with this, I said. If we do, she'll keep steamrolling over everyone. I know, but you need to be prepared. She's going to make life very difficult for us. She already is. The next morning, I woke up to find a citation taped to my front door. It was from the HOA, informing me that I had violated community guidelines by failing to remove snow from my roof within 12 hours of the storm's end. The fine was $100, and it would increase by $50 per day until the violation was corrected. I called Officer Martinez again. She's retaliating, I told him. This is clearly retaliation because I filed a police report. Keep documentation of everything. It'll help your case if this goes to court. If you mean when. Yeah, probably when. I spent the rest of the day calling roofing companies, trying to find someone who could clear my roof. Every single company was booked solid for at least a week due to the storm. Finally, I found a guy on Craigslist who said he could come out that afternoon for $250 cash. It was highway robbery, but I didn't have much choice. His name was Derek, and he showed up with his own roof rake and a ladder. He had the whole job done in about 90 minutes, which made me even more annoyed that Patricia had taken my rake. I could have done it myself for free. While Derek was working, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Is this Nathan Cooper? Yes. This is Robert Chen, Mrs. Chen's son. I just heard about what happened with your roof rake. Oh, yeah, Patricia claimed she was using it to help your mother. That's complete nonsense. My mother's house is a ranch style with a low, pitched roof that barely accumulates any snow. She doesn't need anyone to clear her roof. She has a contract with a snow removal service that takes care of everything. Are you serious? Completely serious. Patricia used my mother as an excuse, and I'm furious about it. My mother is upset too. She doesn't want to be dragged into this drama. Would you be willing to make a statement to the police? Absolutely. Patricia Henderson is a bully, and I'm tired of watching her push people around. I gave Robert the case number and Officer Martinez's contact information. After we hung up, I felt a small sense of vindication. Patricia had lied in her email to the entire neighborhood, and now I had proof. The rest of the week was relatively quiet. I paid Derek, took photos of my cleared roof, and sent them to the HOA with a detailed email explaining that I had complied with their requirements at significant personal expense due to the theft of my equipment. I didn't get a response. On Friday, I received a certified letter from the district attorney's office. They were filing criminal charges against Patricia Henderson for theft. Her court date was scheduled for March 15th. The letter also informed me that, as the victim, I had the right to attend the proceedings and give a victim impact statement if I chose. I immediately forwarded a copy to the HOA board. This time, I got responses from the other board members. The vice president, a guy named Frank Morrison, called me directly. "Nathan, this situation has gotten out of hand. Frank, Patricia stole my property. That's not me getting something out of hand. That's her committing a crime. I understand you're upset, but pressing charges seems extreme." I didn't press charges. The district attorney's office made that decision based on the evidence. Patricia had multiple opportunities to return my property and chose not to. What if she returns it now? That doesn't change the fact that she committed theft. And honestly, at this point, it's not just about the roof rake. It's about her pattern of behavior. She's been abusing her position for years. Frank sighed heavily. "There's going to be a board meeting next Tuesday night. Will you be there? Wouldn't miss it. Patricia is calling for your removal from the community." On what grounds? Disruptive behavior and failure to maintain community harmony. I laughed. "You're joking." I wish I was. "Look, between you and me, I think Patricia has overstepped. But she has allies on the board, and this could get messy." "Let it get messy. I'm not going anywhere." The weekend dragged by. Gloria and I talked strategy. She suggested I hire a lawyer just to be safe. I reached out to a real estate attorney named Michael Brennan who had handled our home purchase. He agreed to review the HOA guidelines and attend the board meeting with me. Monday afternoon, Michael called me with his assessment. "Nathan, I've read through your HOA covenants and bylaws. Patricia Henderson has no legal authority to remove you from the community. You own your property outright. The only way the HOA can force a sale is if you've racked up significant unpaid fines, and they've successfully placed a lien that goes into foreclosure. Even then, it's a long legal process. What about the fines she's trying to levy? Most of them are questionable at best. The ornamental grass height restriction exists, but the enforcement is subjective. The roof snow removal fine is more problematic because you did technically violate it, but you have a good argument that you were prevented from complying because she stole your equipment. So what do I do? Come to the meeting. Bring documentation. Don't lose your temper. Let Patricia dig her own grave. Tuesday evening arrived with another light snowfall. I dressed in business casual, gathered my folder of documentation, and drove to the community center where HOA meetings were held. Michael met me in the parking lot. "Remember, stay calm and factual," he reminded me. The meeting room was packed. Apparently, word had spread through the neighborhood and everyone wanted to see the showdown. I recognized most of the faces. Tom was there, along with the Johnsons, the stablers, and at least 30 other residents. Patricia sat at the head of the table with the other 4 board members: Frank Morrison, Linda Hayes, Doug Peterson, and Sarah Warren. She looked composed and confident, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than my roof rake. The meeting started with standard procedural stuff, approving minutes from the last meeting, discussing snow removal contracts for common areas. Then, Patricia cleared her throat. "We have a special agenda item tonight. It has come to the board's attention that resident Nathan Cooper has engaged in behavior detrimental to community harmony. Specifically, he has involved law enforcement in an internal community matter, made defamatory statements about board leadership, and violated multiple community guidelines." I raised my hand. "Point of order." Patricia's jaw tightened. "This is not a debate, Mr. Cooper. The board will make its presentation and then you will have an opportunity to respond." Michael leaned over and whispered, "Let her finish." Patricia continued, "Mr. Cooper's violations include excessive ornamental grass height, failure to remove snow from his roof in a timely manner, and creating a hostile environment within the community. The board proposes a resolution requiring Mr. Cooper to pay all outstanding fines, issue a public apology to myself and the board, and agree to a probationary period during which any further violations will result in legal action to force the sale of his property." The room erupted in murmurs. Frank Morrison shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I caught Tom's eye and he gave me a thumbs up. Patricia banged a gavel. "Order. We will now hear from Mr. Cooper." I stood up, folder in hand. Michael stood with me. "For the record, I'm Nathan Cooper, and this is my attorney, Michael Brennan. I want to start by addressing the supposed violations. First, the ornamental grass. My prairie drop seed was 39 inches tall, which is 3 inches over the stated maximum. However, these are native grasses that are specifically recommended by Boulder County for water conservation. I would also note that Patricia Henderson herself has ornamental grasses in her front yard that exceed 40 inches in height. I took the liberty of measuring them this morning. I pulled out photos from my folder and passed them around. Several people chuckled. Second, the snow removal. I was physically prevented from removing snow from my roof in a timely manner because Patricia Henderson stole my roof rake. Which brings me to the actual issue here. I pulled out my phone and projected the video onto the wall using the room's AV system. Everyone watched in silence as Patricia grabbed my roof rake and walked away with it, ignoring my requests to return it. This is theft. Patricia claimed she was using my rake to help an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. However, Mrs. Chen's son Robert has provided a statement to the police confirming that his mother never needed roof clearing assistance and has her own snow removal service. Patricia lied to the entire community. The room was dead quiet. I could see Linda Hayes staring at Patricia with a mixture of shock and anger. Furthermore, I continued, Patricia's actions constitute retaliation. After I filed a police report, she immediately issued citations for violations that were either caused by her own actions or were selectively enforced. I have documentation showing that at least 12 other homes in this community have similar or worse violations that have never been cited. I passed around more photos showing houses with tall grasses, peeling paint, unauthorized decorations, and various other infractions that Patricia had ignored. The district attorney's office has filed criminal charges against Patricia Henderson for theft. Her court date is March 15th. I have also consulted with my attorney regarding the legality of the board's proposed resolution, and we are prepared to file a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, selective enforcement, and breach of fiduciary duty if this resolution moves forward." I sat down. Michael gave me a subtle nod of approval. Patricia's face had gone from composed to bright red. "This is absurd. I was acting in the best interest of the community." Frank Morrison cleared his throat. "Patricia, did you take Nathan's roof rake without asking?" "I requisitioned community equipment during an emergency." "It's not community equipment," Frank said. "It's his personal property. The guidelines allow for emergency requisitions." "No, they don't," Linda Hayes said, flipping through a copy of the bylaws. "I've been searching while Nathan was talking. There's no provision for requisitioning personal property." Sarah Warren, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "I think we need to table the resolution against Mr. Cooper and discuss Patricia's actions instead." "This is ridiculous," Patricia snapped. "I am the president of this board and I don't have to justify my decisions to anyone." "Actually, you do," Doug Peterson said quietly. "We're all accountable to the homeowners." The meeting devolved into chaos. Board members argued with each other while residents shouted questions and comments from the gallery. Finally, Frank Morrison called for a recess. During the break, several neighbors came up to thank me for standing up to Patricia. Tom clapped me on the shoulder. "This is better than cable TV." Michael pulled me aside. "This is going well. The board is fracturing. Just keep your cool." When the meeting reconvened, Frank Morrison made an announcement. "The board has discussed the situation during recess. We are tabling the resolution against Nathan Cooper indefinitely. We are also calling for an emergency vote regarding Patricia Henderson's continued service as HOA president." Patricia stood up abruptly. "You can't do that. According to the bylaws, any board member can call for a vote on leadership positions with support from 2 other board members." "I have that support." Linda Hayes and Sarah Warren both nodded. "This is a coup," Patricia said, her voice shaking with rage. "This is accountability," Frank replied. "All in favor of removing Patricia Henderson as HOA president." 4 hands went up. Only Doug Peterson abstained. Motion carries. "Patricia, you are removed as president effective immediately. However, you retain your position as a board member unless you choose to resign." "I will not resign, and I will fight this." "That's your right." Patricia gathered her papers and stormed out of the room. The gallery burst into applause. Frank continued, "We still need to address the theft issue. Nathan, has your roof rake been returned?" "No." "As the new acting president, my first official act is to request that Patricia return Nathan's property immediately. If she does not comply within 24 hours, the HOA will reimburse Nathan for the cost of the rake and any expenses incurred due to its theft." "I appreciate that, Frank, but the criminal charges are still proceeding." "That's not something I can control, and honestly, I think Patricia needs to face consequences for her actions." "Understood." Meeting adjourned. As people filed out, I felt exhausted but vindicated. Michael shook my hand. "Well handled. I think you're in the clear now." I drove home and collapsed on the couch. Gloria brought me a beer. "How did it go?" "They removed her as president." "No way. It was spectacular." Over the next few days, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Patricia, true to form, did not return my roof rake. Instead, she sent me an email claiming she had given it to Mrs. Chen and no longer had it in her possession. Robert Chen immediately called me to confirm this was another lie. The HOA board, now led by Frank Morrison, voted to reimburse me $200 for the rake and the cost of hiring someone to clear my roof. They also launched an audit of all fines issued during Patricia's tenure as president. The audit results were damning. Patricia had issued over $40,000 in fines over 3 years, most of which were for minor or questionable violations. Many residents had paid the fines just to avoid the hassle of fighting them. The board voted to refund any fines that were found to be inappropriately levied. March 15th arrived faster than I expected. I took the morning off work to attend Patricia's court hearing. The courtroom was small, just a county court for misdemeanor cases. Patricia showed up with a lawyer, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit. The prosecutor was a young woman named Jessica Torres, who looked like she was about 5 years out of law school. She laid out the case efficiently. Video evidence of the theft, my testimony, Officer Martinez's report, and Robert Chen's statement debunking Patricia's justification. Patricia's lawyer argued that it was a civil dispute, not a criminal matter. He claimed Patricia had genuinely believed she was acting within her authority as HOA president. Judge William Crawford, a gray-haired man who looked like he had heard every excuse in the book, was not impressed. "Counsel, if I walk into your office and take your briefcase because I believe I have the authority to do so, is that a civil matter or theft? Your Honor, that's different." How? My client was acting in her official capacity. Her official capacity does not grant her the right to take other people's property without permission. The video clearly shows Mr. Cooper asking her to return his property, and she refused. That's theft. The defendant's motivation doesn't change the nature of the crime. Patricia was found guilty of petty theft. She was sentenced to 30 days in jail, suspended, 1 year of probation, and ordered to pay restitution for the roof rake, plus the cost of the snow removal service I had hired. She also had to complete 40 hours of community service. As we left the courtroom, Patricia's lawyer was already talking about an appeal, but Patricia looked defeated. Her reign of terror over Meadowbrook was officially over. 2 weeks later, the HOA held another board meeting. Patricia had resigned from the board entirely, and the community voted in a new member, a young teacher named Amanda Rodriguez who had just moved in last year. The board also voted to revise the community guidelines, removing many of the overly restrictive rules that Patricia had championed. But the story didn't end there. During the final week of March, Officer Martinez called me with an update. "Remember how I told you we'd been investigating other complaints against Patricia Henderson?" "Yeah." "Well, it turns out she's been embezzling from the HOA." "What?" "The audit that your board conducted. They found some irregularities in the financial records and reported it to us. We got a warrant for Patricia's bank records. She's been skimming money from HOA dues for 2 years. We're talking about almost $30,000. Holy shit." "Yeah." "We're filing felony charges. This is way bigger than the roof rake." The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Apparently, Patricia had been using a complicated scheme involving fake vendor invoices and inflated service contracts. She would hire companies to do work for the HOA, then have them bill for more than the actual cost. The companies would kick back the difference to Patricia in cash. The board hired a forensic accountant who uncovered the full extent of the fraud. Patricia had stolen just over $28,000 over a period of 26 months. In June, Patricia was arrested at her home. The scene was oddly satisfying. I happened to be driving by when 2 police cars pulled up to her house. I didn't stop to watch, but Tom texted me photos later. Patricia being led out in handcuffs, her husband standing in the doorway looking shell-shocked. The criminal trial took place in August. This time, it was in district court because embezzlement over $5,000 is a felony in Colorado. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, fake invoices, testimony from the vendors who had participated in the scheme. Some of them had agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Patricia's defense was that she had used the money for community improvements that weren't properly documented. The prosecutor tore that argument apart. There were no improvements. Patricia had used the money to pay for vacations, designer handbags, and renovations to her own home. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: theft, embezzlement, and fraud. In September, Patricia was sentenced to 4 years in state prison and ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA. Her husband filed for divorce 2 weeks later. As for my roof rake, it never did turn up. Patricia claimed she had left it at Mrs. Chen's house, then changed her story to say she had returned it to my porch and someone must have taken it. Nobody believed her. The HOA bought me a new roof rake, top of the line, with an extended handle and ergonomic grip. It cost $300, and Frank Morrison personally delivered it to my house with an apology on behalf of the board. "I'm sorry we didn't step in sooner," he said. "A lot of us knew Patricia was overstepping, but nobody wanted to deal with the drama." "Well, the drama found us anyway," I said. "Yeah, but at least it's over now." Life in Meadowbrook slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. The board implemented new financial controls, including requiring 2 signatures on all checks and quarterly audits by an independent accountant. They also established a grievance procedure so homeowners could challenge fines without fear of retaliation. The Johnsons removed the citation for their commercial vehicle and happily parked their work truck in their driveway. The Stabler's Sons band continued to practice on Saturday afternoons, and nobody complained. Tom let his dandelions grow with pride, calling them pollinator habitat. As for me, I kept my ornamental grasses at whatever height they wanted to grow. When the next big snowstorm hit in February, I used my fancy new roof rake to clear not just my roof, but also the roofs of 2 elderly neighbors who actually needed help. I didn't ask for permission from the HOA. I just did it because it was the right thing to do. Emma asked me once why I didn't just let Patricia keep the old roof rake to avoid all the trouble. "Because sometimes standing up to bullies is more important than keeping the peace," I told her. Patricia thought she could push people around because she had a title and nobody would challenge her. But we all have to follow the same rules, whether we're HOA president or just regular people. Nobody gets to take what isn't theirs, even if it's just a roof rake. Especially if it's just a roof rake. It's not about the rake itself. It's about the principle. Gloria said I was being dramatic, but she said it with a smile. She knew I was right. The criminal justice system had worked slowly but effectively. Patricia Henderson's attempt to steal my roof rake had exposed a much larger pattern of abuse and criminal behavior. What started as a petty theft had unraveled years of corruption and tyranny. I ran into Officer Martinez at a coffee shop in October. He was off duty, waiting in line for a latte. "Hey Nathan, how's the roof rake situation? All resolved? I've got a new one and Patricia's in prison." "Yeah, I heard. That case got way bigger than any of us expected. Did you ever think when you responded to that first call that it would end with a felony conviction?" He laughed. "Honestly, no. I thought it was just another HOA dispute. But you were persistent and you were right. That video you took was crucial. Without that evidence, it would have been a he said, she said situation, and who knows how it would have turned out." So the moral of the story is, always document everything. That's definitely part of it. But the bigger moral is that no position of authority gives someone the right to break the law. Patricia forgot that. I thought about that conversation a lot over the following months. How many people had Patricia bullied over the years who didn't fight back? How many unfair fines had been paid just to avoid confrontation? How long would the embezzlement have continued if she hadn't escalated to outright theft in front of a witness with a camera? The neighborhood was genuinely happier now. The HOA meetings, which used to be tense affairs where Patricia lectured people about compliance, became collaborative discussions about actual community improvements. They installed new playground equipment at the park. They organized a neighborhood barbecue. They even started a community garden where residents could grow vegetables together. Patricia's husband sold their house and moved away. I felt a little bad for him. He probably had no idea what his wife was doing. Their teenage son had to transfer schools in his senior year. Collateral damage from Patricia's choices. In November, almost a full year after the roof rake incident, the HOA held elections for board positions. Frank Morrison ran for president officially and won unanimously. Amanda Rodriguez became vice president. 3 other new members joined the board, all of them reasonable people who wanted to serve the community, not rule over it. At the first meeting under the newly elected board, Frank made a speech about learning from the past. "We let one person accumulate too much unchecked authority," he said. "We looked the other way when residents were treated unfairly because it was easier than confronting the problem. That ends now. This board works for you, the homeowners. We're here to maintain property values and ensure everyone can enjoy their homes in peace. We're not here to micromanage your lives or squeeze money out of you for minor violations." The room applauded. I caught Gloria's eye and she squeezed my hand. After the meeting, several people thanked me again for standing up to Patricia. It was getting a little embarrassing. "I just wanted my roof rake back," I kept saying, but Tom put it best. "Yeah, but you didn't back down. That's what mattered. You showed everyone that we don't have to accept being pushed around." December brought more snow, and I was ready with my top-of-the-line roof rake. I cleared my roof after every storm and I helped my neighbors. Mrs. Chen's son, Robert, sent me a bottle of scotch as a thank you for including his mother's name in the fight against Patricia. "My mom was so angry that Patricia used her as an excuse," he wrote in the card. "She wanted to testify against her at trial, but the prosecutor said it wasn't necessary. She appreciates you standing up for what's right." On Christmas Eve, Emma and I were hanging lights on the front porch when a car slowed down in front of our house. For a moment, I tensed, wondering if it was Patricia somehow out on bail or early release. But it was just a family who had recently moved into the house Patricia used to own. The driver rolled down his window. "Hey, are you Nathan Cooper?" "Yeah, I'm Marcus Webb. We just moved in. I wanted to introduce myself and say thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For exposing what was going on with the HOA. When we were looking at houses in Boulder, we almost didn't consider Meadowbrook because of the reputation your HOA had. But then we heard about everything that happened, how the community cleaned house and fixed the problems. That's why we decided to buy here. It showed us this is a neighborhood that cares about doing the right thing." We chatted for a few minutes. The Webbs had 2 young kids and a golden retriever. They seemed like good people. As they drove away, Emma looked up at me. "That was because of your roof rake, right?" "In a weird way, yeah. The roof rake started it. You should write a book, The Roof Rake That Changed Everything." I laughed. I don't think anyone would believe it, but she was right in a way. One moment of standing up for principle, one refusal to let something unfair slide, had cascaded into real change. It wasn't really about the roof rake at all. It was about refusing to be intimidated, insisting on accountability, and trusting that the system, however imperfect, could work if you were willing to engage with it. Patricia Henderson had spent 3 years building a little empire of control and fear. She had gotten away with it because people were tired, busy with their own lives, and didn't want the hassle of fighting back. She probably thought she was invincible, but she made one critical mistake. She got greedy and careless. She stole from someone who wasn't intimidated and wasn't willing to let it go. And that one theft, captured on video, provided the evidence that brought everything else crashing down. I sometimes wondered what Patricia thought about during her time in prison. Did she regret taking the roof rake? Did she understand how that single act of petty tyranny had led to her downfall? Or did she still think she had been in the right, just unfairly persecuted? I would never know. I had no desire to visit her or communicate with her. As far as I was concerned, that chapter was closed. The roof rake hung in my garage, ready for the next snowstorm. Every time I looked at it, I was reminded that standing up for yourself matters, that documentation and evidence matter, that persistence matters. And most importantly, that sometimes the smallest act of theft can uncover the biggest crimes. Patricia took a roof rake. The justice system took her freedom and exposed her fraud. In the end, the scales balanced. Life in Meadowbrook continued, quieter and healthier than it had been in years. Property values actually increased once word spread that the toxic HOA leadership was gone. People took pride in their homes again without fear of arbitrary fines. The community thrived. As for me, I went back to my quiet life. I went to work, spent time with Gloria and Emma, and cleared snow from my roof when necessary. I attended HOA meetings occasionally, but I never sought a leadership position. I had done my part, but I kept that video on my phone, backed up in 3 different places. Just in case anyone ever asked me to explain how a 24-foot aluminum roof rake brought down a corrupt HOA president and sent her to prison for embezzlement. Because sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. And sometimes justice starts with something as simple as refusing to let someone steal your snow removal tool. The end came full circle one afternoon in March, exactly 2 years after Patricia's first court date for the roof rake theft. I was in my driveway, washing my car, when a young couple walked by pushing a stroller. "Excuse me, are you Nathan Cooper?" the woman asked. "That's me. We're the Parkers. We just joined the HOA board. Frank Morrison told us we should introduce ourselves to you. He said you're the one who helped clean up the corruption." I just reported a theft. Everything else kind of followed from that. "Still, thank you. This is a great neighborhood now. We're happy to be here." After they walked away, I finished washing the car and went inside. Gloria was making dinner while Emma did homework at the kitchen table. "Another grateful neighbor?" Gloria asked. "Yep, I'm thinking of getting business cards made. Nathan Cooper, neighborhood justice, one roof rake at a time." She threw a dish towel at me. "Don't encourage him," she told Emma. But Emma was smiling. "Dad's famous for being stubborn." "I prefer principled," I said. "Stubborn," Gloria and Emma said in unison. I couldn't argue with that. Maybe I was stubborn. But sometimes stubborn is exactly what the situation requires. Outside, the early spring sun was melting the last of winter's snow. The roof rake hung in the garage, waiting for next winter. And Patricia Henderson sat in a prison cell, serving time for crimes that might never have been discovered if she had just asked to borrow my roof rake instead of stealing it. That's the thing about karma. Sometimes it needs a little help. Sometimes it needs someone willing to say no and mean it. Sometimes it needs documentation, police reports, and a functioning justice system. But mostly, it just needs someone who gives a damn. And on that snowy day in January when Patricia Henderson walked off with my property, I gave a damn. I gave enough of a damn to make a phone call, file a report, and see it through to the end. The roof rake was just the beginning. Everything that followed, all the revelations and consequences and changes, flowed from that one decision to not let it slide. So yeah, maybe I'm stubborn. But I'm also a homeowner in a community that's better off because someone was stubborn enough to insist on accountability. And honestly, that's worth more than any roof rake.